Mundy, well, a massive day. How are you feeling, and I guess how did you come to the decision that now was the right time?
Feeling more relieved than anything, to be honest. I'd come to the decision early last week, and it's been a pretty horrible week of no sleep and thinking about this day and what I'm going to say to the playing group and the club, and how my kids would handle the press conference. So it's nice to finally get that off my chest and be embraced by the football club.
Why now, I guess?
Well, it's been something that's been kind of churning away in the back of my mind for a little while. I think now is a good time in order to, I guess, say a proper thank you in the back half of the year, both to our WA-based supporters, but also to my friends and family and supporters in Victoria with our game coming up this week. And if it helps with a little bit of motivation and a bit of added vigour for the guys in the back up bit of the year, that'll be handy.
How hard is it, David, to get your head around it after 19 years?
Yeah, extremely. As I said, it's been a long time coming, this decision. I've had the negative voice in the back of my head for many, many years, which I've managed to overcome and put that, I guess, performance anxiety to the side to a certain extent. But yeah, to finally come to the decision, I grew up at the football club, and so what's next is still fairly daunting.
What was the reaction from the players?
Well, probably best to ask them, to be honest. Yeah, it's something that's not ever easy to do. I remember sitting in the audience with guys like Matthew Pavlich and Shane Parker, telling the group that that would be the end for them, and it's always a surreal kind of feeling. But I don't know what they went through, but I know in the past I've gone through. You automatically think about the good times that you had together and the hard work that you've done.
What is it? What's the legacy you want to leave for the younger players in particular, but for the club in general? Like, what is it about when they say the words David Mundy? What do they want to associate with that?
Well, hopefully just a humble battler. To be honest, I've sacrificed a lot in my life and in my football role and career for the club and for the team, and hopefully that can be reflected in my legacy.
David, how have you viewed your own? You can't seriously think you're a battler. Like, how have you viewed your career?
Again, me talking about me is not my greatest strength and not something I enjoy doing the most. But clearly I've been able to achieve a level of individual success in the game, which has been really nice. And it's really great to reflect on, particularly with my family. But it's not something that I ever sought out, and not something that was ever a great goal of mine to be, a 300 whatever game player and the rest of that. So we've got a bit of work to do this year to go out on a really great high, and that's what I'll be hanging my hat on.
How hard is it, I guess, to walk away when Freo is in such a good position and close potentially to a flag?
Yeah, it's actually quite a lot easier. I feel really proud of my work that's gone on behind the scenes about developing and growing this group of players. And what we've come from even just 4 or 5 years ago, if it had have finished then, it would have felt really empty, I think. So walking out with what I've achieved, but what I've been able to help do in the football club, fills me up and makes me feel really proud.
If you were to finish the season, if you were closer to the 400 mark and you're on 385, 390, would you have maybe stuck around to try and get to 400? Did it go through your mind at all?
I don't think so, no. They're very individual goals, and I think I'm the kind of character that they're very much secondary. I take a lot of pride as well in the fact that I'm walking out with a bit left in the tank. I'd feel really guilty if I'd hung around and walked out a crippled, broken old man. So, to still be able to contribute on field and to set this group up for future success is something that I'm very happy with.
You said you decided last week, and then you had 35 on Friday night. Like, was it weighing on you during the season that the fact you had to make some sort of call, and getting rid of it, did that help you to play for Freo?
Oh, to be honest, the weekend was a bit of a fluke. I had the worst prep. I felt really thin in my warm-up. I was smashing lollies as we were running out through the banner. Had no sleep last week, so I think that's just another example of how you feel. It doesn't really matter. You just got to go out and try and play your role and get it done.
You were drafted as a full-back, and you've played half-back, you played forward, you've played mid, you've done everything. Like, how did you transform yourself from a key position defender into what you've become?
Yeah, you missed a little period of key forward there as well in 2018. Really quickly, I guess I came into the club probably a bit naive about what AFL football was about and what it took. The development pathway that I came through is not as developed as they are now, so I certainly took a little while to get going. I think my first year here playing with Subiaco in the Premiership was really good for me. Being able to play against men in a successful environment, I think helped build my confidence and understand the strengths of my game really quickly. Fast forward a few years to playing half-back and then moving up into the midfield, saw it as a great opportunity to utilise some of my greatest strengths. But again, in the back of my mind, the negative voice is always churning away about my weaknesses and what I needed to work on as a footballer. So felt like I got to work, and the continuity I've been able to have throughout my career has been the backbone of me being able to do what I do.
Sacrifices, you mentioned family and all those things. What was that first the conversation with Sally, your wife, when you said it was time?
Yeah, there's always pretty emotional. Sally's quite an emotional creature, and I'm surprised she's not crying already. But yeah, it's something that we've openly discussed about. For 10 or 15 years, I've been thinking about what's next and my pathway out and what I'm going to do and be, and I still have no idea. But yeah, it's something that we constantly talk about. So I guess it wasn't a great reveal or great shocking moment. It was just kind of a gradual understanding about where we're at and the decision that we made.
You probably aren't aware of this, but you've played probably 250 games more than the rest of your 2003 club draft mates combined. Do you ever think back to then, and could you have possibly imagined what your career has been like?
No, not at all. The good thing about making this decision now is I reflect on particularly my time coming in, and I was drafted with a whole lot of Vic Country boys and still really close with some of those. But I remember, and this is a bad thing to bring up with a travel game coming up, but I remember my first few years, I used to room with Ryan Murphy, and we used to wake up, go on our team walk, go back to bed before we jumped on the bus to go to a game. And like the level of, my beginning level of professionalism was so bottom end, it was amazing to think back on. And yes, I guess the growth and the dedication that has grown from, I guess, realising my dream and being able to do that consistently is what's driven me forward.
I know you said you're not sure on what's happening next, but is coaching something you'd like to consider?
Possibly, yeah. The longer I've been in football, the more I think about being a player for as long as I have. It's a bit like going to uni for 10 years to be a doctor and not being a doctor. Like I've built up a lot of knowledge and just latent understanding, I guess, of how the game's played at the moment. So that's certainly a direction I'll be exploring, but it's, I wouldn't lock that one in.
What do you want to get out of the rest of the season? Now you've got that off your shoulders, what do you want for the next month?
6 wins.
So many highs and lows throughout your career, Dave. Are there any that come to mind straight away when you kind of reflect back on now?
Yeah, again, that's me talking about me is not great. I'd rather other people do that. But the things that I've been thinking about are the players that I've played with and the people associated with the football club. Kepler Bradley celebrating after kicking goal from the pocket, after kicking 5 or 6 behinds in a row and getting back on the phone straight away. Lukey Ryan always being there for his mates and ripping jumpers and ripping his own occasionally. Marshall Stockton rocking up for 19 years with the same hard-working, enthusiastic demeanour for 19 years. It's pretty incredible to think about. And so the people that I've been able to work with and associate myself with and learn off has been really great and a large part of my journey.
You seem to always step up in the biggest moments for the club, big games, big goals, things like that. Was that just something that came from kind of the pride in the club, or was that preparation and things like that?
I just mastered the art of walking before those big moments to catch my breath, I guess. I've been lucky to have been in those positions a little bit, but again, it's not something that I necessarily think about too much. I think the work that we do behind the scenes here to put ourselves in really stressful environments and situations and to execute our skill is a fundamental of what we try and achieve in our training. So to have been able to do that a few times has been great.
How do you reflect back to 2013 now in the grand final, first time for the club, such a big occasion? You get enormous with medal votes and play really well, but the result doesn't go your way. So how do you look back on that at this point now that you know that you're finishing up?
An incredible experience, and one that I wouldn't change other than the result, obviously, but coming out of that with the understanding that we gave it absolutely everything. We left our hearts on our sleeves and we left everything out on the field, and we ultimately came up pretty short. is not something that I dwell on or worry about or think about too much. I remember the great experience of going through that entire final series, the wave of passion and emotion from the entire WA football community, and then being able to play on the biggest stage, something that I'm really proud of.
How do you feel the team's placed, David, to get those 6 more wins?
Pretty well, yeah. We're obviously going through our struggles, but outside of probably Geelong, everyone else is as well. So we've been through it a bit this morning, but some of our stuff are such easy fixes, and if we can find that care and connection with each other on the field, we'll be okay.
And the fans obviously have such love for you as well as a favourite Docker. What are your plans to, I guess, farewell them?
Get those 6 more wins, and we'll tour Fremantle after that. That'll be great. Clearly we've got our last scheduled home game is the Derby, so there'll probably be a little bit of carry on like this around that, and hopefully that ends up in a great win and a packed house, and get a couple of home finals. That'll be even better.
What would you like your legacy to be like around the football club and within these 4 walls? What would you like to be remembered by?
Oh, I don't need to be remembered. I just came in and played my part and did my role.
Since you don't want to talk about yourself, really quickly, you played all across the field. We've talked about that. Hardest opponent, I should say, and best or worst club mate in the 19 years.
Hardest to play against. I remember in one of my first games I played against Paul Lucuria at Collingwood, and I was a skinny halfback, and he was this Man Mountain He-Man looking thing, a bit like Trav Collier behind you there actually. And he just did 150s on me all day, and I remember halfway through the second quarter I was just done, and like, how am I going to get through this? So that was my first real eye-opening, geez, AFL football is pretty tough. And worst teammate, going back a little while, I roomed with Scotty Thornton in Geelong once, and he's an absolute pig of a human. It was disgusting, that hotel room. So I still get along really well with Scotty, but he was a yuck man.
How do you look at, you're top 10 of all time for VFL, AFL, and you've passed basically Ablett this year, you'll pass Goods in a couple of, you'll equal Goods this week. Like, when you sit in the names that are around you in that pecking order, what does that mean to you to see your own name there at this point?
It's still very weird, still very strange. I don't know how to talk about that kind of stuff, to be honest. It's not something that I set out to do. It's not something that I necessarily right now think is ultra extra special. I just got caught in the vortex of playing AFL week in, week out, and the years and the games go by really quickly.
What do you owe your longevity to, the keeping your body right and not being as injury prone as some other players?
A fair bit of luck. Clearly I've avoided really big injuries, and in the last couple of years when I have been injured, they've been quite timely, to be honest, over the summer period. Obviously preparation and what we do from a physical standpoint to prepare ourselves for seasons and games and recover from games and training sessions plays a big part, particularly in the WA sides. And over the back half of my journey, the mental side of the game has been a big area of focus for me, and being able to, lift myself to the level to compete has been sometimes a really big challenge, but something that I've developed and I feel like I'm fairly strong in now. But then also to be able to switch off and wind down post-games and training sessions, I think has been a great strength.
His family, and I know you studied as well, did that help with that as well?
Yeah, obviously we're quite busy, Sal and I, at home now, but distractions away from football are always, I think, a positive thing, as long as you can, when you come back into the building, you switch back on, and you can move between your different phases of your life. But I've always been pretty good at compartmentalising things and putting them in my boxes in my brain, and I guess I've been able to do that.
And how did the kids cope with you retiring? Are they happy, sad?
Well, Edie, our little girl, has obviously no idea. Hudson loves footy, and it hasn't quite hit him yet, I don't think. And when we told Finn the other day, he asked why, and I said, because I'm old and no good anymore. And he said, that's sad, Dad, because you're still a very good player, but I'm glad because you're better to spend more time with us. So, he's a nice little boy.
A bit more goal umpiring?
Yeah. I've actually got my rotation coming up, I think. Thank you.